Well, hey guys, welcome back to Why We Draw. I'm Rob Culbertson, here again with John Weir.
Yes.
And Garrett Burtner.
Hello, hello.
Hey guys, how's it going today?
It's going well. We're super excited about, thinking about what we learned talking with Crystal Worl. It was awesome.
Yeah, I'm really excited to share this episode.
Garrett, what would you say is like one of the few things that came out of the conversation that you're really excited about to share today?
Well, Crystal is kind of a hero of mine of the last few years. So I've been aware of Trickster since that project, since it started, I think, and it just came out fully formed, it seemed to me, and I've just been looking forward to interfacing somehow with the creators of Trickster and Crystal and her brother Rico. And so I was kind of starstruck, actually, meeting Crystal. I think she's a really solid artist, a really great community representative for Alaska, for Northwest Coast Formline Art and the Tlingit people, and it was just fantastic. I mean, she's so much more, has so much depth, and I was blown away.
One of the things that I really enjoyed about what Crystal Worl does is the line art, but more importantly is her connection with people. She's really good at communicating. She's connected to any environment that she's in and reads it really well. And, there's a deep respect for community that she has that, has inspired me to be, have that kind of commitment to my community.
That came across really strong for me as well. I feel like Crystal is a great combination of self-assured in her skills and knowledge and direction, but also just so humble in her recognition of those that came before her, the traditions, the mentors. Really inspiring.
Yeah, totally.
It's always the quiet ones that are the most talented. That's what I found out.
Yeah, so
very unassuming.
Totally agree, Garrett. It's inspiring to be around people like that. I think that
really
I always want to meet and be around people that are talking about community, being part of it, and trying to elevate people's understanding about the value of it.
Absolutely. So with that, let's meet and talk with Alaskan artist, creator, creative, and erstwhile singer, Crystal Worl.
Yeah. Let's get into it. Welcome back to Why We Draw. I'm Rob Culbertson, and I'm here again with Garrett Burtner.
Hello.
And John Weir.
Hello.
And today we're very excited. We are speaking with Crystal Worl. Crystal is a self-described storyteller, entrepreneur, and multidisciplinary artist out of Juneau, Alaska. And welcome, Crystal.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
We're happy that you're here. I wanted to ask you right up front the question central to our podcast. Crystal, why do you draw?
Well, it's a really soothing process for me. It helps me remember things. It helps me communicate with other people and with my future self. And it's a really great way for me to visualize what I want to do and what am I envisioning for the future. I tend to be a very ambitious person and would like to create a lot of things. I'm limited by time, but drawing gives me a really nice way of documenting my ideas, my dreams, and interpreting those things and helping remember them and translate them to people.
So, Crystal, I so dig that you're aware of the timepiece because, I'm always worried that I'm going to run out of time to get all the things done I want to get done, need to get done. So appreciate that.
You know, when you mentioned talking or communicating with your future self, can you expand on that a little bit? You must be at a point now where you're able to look back 10 years and see how you've evolved over time.
I'm just so full of ideas and wanting to create a lot of things. And so it's not easy to remember an idea and all its details that's encompassed in the moment. And so I sketch it. I write it down and I put little doodles next to it, and I put it in my sketchbook where if it's a day that I need to jog my memory, or I need to brainstorm an idea, or I need to narrow down a concept, I can go back through my sketches and be like, wow, that was a really good idea. I'm glad that I took notes on it. This is how I'm going to execute this project. And sometimes old ideas can be revamped into new ideas or projects. They're always very useful. And I do that with my sketchbooks. I dig into my brother's sketchbooks all the time. And it's one of my favorite things to do when I meet another artist is looking into their sketchbooks. It's very personal, but it also it's really fun. It's kind of like I get to look inside of their brain.
That's super wicked.
Do you have a particular medium that you work in your sketchbook with, or is it just whatever's handy at the moment?
I used to carry a pencil and a sketchbook and tracing paper, but now I use an iPad and Procreate. It's made I'm very mobile. I travel a lot, and so carrying around a iPad is much more convenient.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot of artists are doing that, and it's getting better and better and better. It's a fascinating technical advancement that is allowing the creativity to get a little bit more organic, but also speeding up the process.
It's really cool. And when I'm sketching with friends or my brother, we'll just swap the same file, or we'll airdrop ideas to each other, or we'll exchange files. We use the Google Drive a lot to drop big files to each other, but it's just really convenient. I could be on the other side of the planet, which I am often, and my brother and I will be working on a collab piece together, or have an idea, and I just need his feedback really quick. With the tools and the internet, it's too easy.
You mentioned your brother a few times, Rico
Yeah.
Worl, correct? And so is this a family affair, something you guys have done since a young age that's just kind of evolved over time, or do you come from a particularly artistic family?
I'd say so. At a young age, we were taught about who we were and how to sew our regalia, how to bead, how to work with fish skin, and a lot of our creativity was stemmed in our cultural upbringing, and so it wasn't necessarily art, but just a way of how our family would spend time together. And then my mom was always very supportive and encouraging of my art. My aunt would always mail me packages with art supplies, and I didn't know what they were, but they were my toys. And I'd watch Bob Ross every Saturday morning with Barney and Power Rangers. And my parents were just very nurturing of my creativity and my brother's creativity. And we grew up, drawing tools, paper, and scissors were our toys. And I never got punished for drawing on the wall, so I just kept doing it. And I'm still drawing on walls.
What do you think is your maybe one early inspiration breakout moment where you knew that moment where you know that you need to do something with the talents that you have, your craft?
I guess there was multiple moments in my upbringing where I just have always had so much fun creating things, coming up with things. And Rico, my brother Rico, and our younger brother Kyle, we used to get construction paper and crayons and cut them and make little fold-up pop-ups, and we'd build a whole town with this and create pop-up shops, and we'd use little Hot Wheel cars to drive to and from each other's stores. Like, we'd create the clothing out of construction paper that was inside the little shops and the books. We'd name them. Sometimes we'd write stupid little things inside of the books because it'd make us laugh. But yeah, I think that those moments like that where I was having so much fun and I was also bonding with my brothers, and it was just a fun thing to do. I don't think I ever stopped thinking that way and playing that way with it. You could say maybe there was a point when I was in high school and I was really struggling with math and science, and all the cool kids were in calculus 1 and 2, and I was like feeling really smart the day I made it to pre-calc. But I always thrived in creativity, and I had this one biology teacher named Philip Fleckenstein, and he's still the biology teacher at
I'm sure nobody
Stellar.
made fun of that last name.
Yeah. I'm close.
And he was our biology teacher at Stellar High School where I went. And he taught our lessons with comic book drawings on the board every morning. And I still remember his lessons to this day, and the puns he threw in there, like mitosis are cold. And biology is kind of like a dry subject for me. But for our tests, he would always encourage that if I couldn't remember how to write the answer, I could illustrate it. And he'd always say I could take as much time as I needed to illustrate the answers. And that really helped me succeed in a category that was very challenging for me otherwise. Because I have a visual memory and I'm a visual learner. And so I remember when I took anatomy and biology with him, I was able to draw. When I studied for tests, it would take me all night. I didn't sleep. I'd pull all-nighters because my flashcards, they weren't written, they were illustrated, and they took forever. They were really beautiful though, but I got extra credit for turning those in as well. And it was like an art class more for me, but it helped me retain that information from something that was very dry to me.
Yeah, the visual piece, I think a lot of creatives count on it. They're really connected to it, and they it brings them through the problem or through the solution to make the idea really good.
One thing that I believe is really important that this series is trying to get at is just this, that drawing is a language, is a language equivalent to written language or to mathematics or other, symbol-based things. And it's really neat to hear that was so successful for you. I imagine it wasn't true in every class and every school setting, but I had some similar opportunities in school to pivot out of the strictly written and into something more illustrative, and always really relish that.
It's always surprised me that there's so much math and science within our culture and how we process things. It comes down to a science. Even weaving is math, or creating a tessellation is math. And I have always been frustrated that our education system doesn't incorporate teaching math and science in ways that are more inclusive of visual and creative ways. It's always like the driest, most boring way of learning.
Well, you have to have a teacher that's willing to invest the time, right? And kind of can spend that kind of time with the students to kind of lens through and find those kind of solutions so that the content really resonates.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have not had that conversation. That's really fascinating to me. So what does the journey look like after high school?
Let's see.
I know that you and your brother started your own company, trickstercompany.com, and that what was that born out of?
Well, after I finished high school, I was unsure of what I wanted to do, so I spent a couple years at UAA just dabbling around in all the different classes and, continuing my, I don't know what I want to do, but all the while still creating. I eventually hit a point where I realized I want to be an artist and I'm going to go to an art school. And my grandmother had been pushing me to go to the Institute of American Indian Arts in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And it's a tribal college that has this amazing arts program for film, for 3D, 2D, indigenous studies, museum studies, the creative writing. And a lot of majority of their professors are indigenous, and the textbooks that are required for these courses are written by indigenous authors. And it's in this beautiful campus that's surrounded by art. And so I ended up transferring there and began to really thrive there. And just being surrounded by other artists in a space that was an atmosphere that was for artists was such a game changer. And this whole time I was like, nothing against UAA. I had a great time there, but the arts program at IAI was just so wonderful. And the network that I have, I'm friends and, co-collaborators with people that I've met to this day from that network. So it's just, I can't speak to it enough of how it helps to be surrounded by other artists and be creative and bounce ideas off of each other and be inspired by one another, but also give each other constructive criticism. And after I finished my college degree, I got my BFA in jewelry metalsmithing from the Institute of American Indian Arts in 2013. And I had such a great experience that I ended up working for them for a year to recruit students from Alaska. I was like, this is so awesome. You got to leave Alaska and go to this art school, and then you can come back and, slay, whatever. So I did that. And in my last year there, I developed a business plan. And I didn't tell my brother, Rico. Meanwhile, I didn't know, he hits me up and he says, hey, you're moving home. I have this idea. I got to show you this thing. And I was like, I have this idea. I got to show you this thing. And so we swapped these files. And I kid you not, it was the same business plan, except his was way cooler because he's better at certain things than I am. But we had the same idea for creating a shop downtown Juneau, selling our artwork, but not just like our fine artwork, our designs as it applies to modern products like skateboards, yoga mats, basketballs, and working with manufacturers to apply our designs on products so that the everyday person could buy them and go play basketball in them. Or we'd see like young kids down the street skating our skateboards. Those kind of things were exciting for us. And we're like, we're going into business. We're going to do this. I guess we're doing this. And so I moved back to Juneau in 2014, and we opened up the brick and mortar for Trickster Company.
We've talked a little bit about this, how people in different professions and different walks of life, kind of turn their passion and their creativity into a career, how they pay the bills, the intersection of creativity and commerce. And everybody's journey is a little bit different, it seems like. But I think it's great that you found a path with your brother, almost like you were on the same page there. And so he helps kind of fill in the gaps in some ways. You both bring something different to the table.
Yeah.
I think you need a strong business partner, to handle kind of the day-to-day sometimes.
Yeah. At the end of the day, we're family, and we'll get past it and we'll figure it out. Yeah. He's always been really smart with technology and the math of 3D work and 3D printing and having the latest techie tool to make art. He's always really into that. And me, I'm more hands-on. I like painting. I like printmaking. I love using my hands and being in the studio and using my body to create. Whereas he's actually a really good painter, but he can't stand it. He's like, I'll never do murals. So we kind of tag team, like different parts of the projects. When I did the artwork for the Juneau International Airport, there was a lot of technical drawings that were sent my way that, I didn't really understand the blueprints. I had him look at those, and he really helped me break it down and figure out how to make what is a painting into a digital rendition that could fit within these crazy dimensions. So without my brother, I think public art would be such a different world for me. He's actually the reason I stepped into public art.
The things that we do as architects, when we collaborate, it's way better than being alone, right?
Yeah.
Because you have this kind of spirit of what you're doing, and you're connected in so many different ways, and leveraging your strengths, and it makes the difference. Really does.
Especially like a chosen collaborator.
Right.
When you choose to come together.
Well, since birth.
Yeah.
Less of a choice, but it's good that you found common ground, right? Like, not everybody gets that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You would it be fair to say that you specialize in Northwest Coast Formline Art?
Yeah.
On a lot of your projects. What has that journey been like, integrating your culture and your creativity and kind of finding expression through that?
There were a couple points in my life deciding to be an artist, because I have this background in acting and theater and film, but also in storytelling and aerial acrobatics. And I did all those things for a few years, and I really thrived and loved doing them and could have continued, but I kept carrying on doing art and design the whole time. And being able to do formline design was something that was always so powerful, something that I inherited, not just this creative gene, but that I come from a lineage of people that created this style of design, and it has so much philosophy that comes with it, and understanding the philosophy of our art has allowed me to understand how to live this prosperous and really precious life at my best. And when you look at the art of trying to find balance between the negative and the positive space and how they interact with one another, it's really beautiful how that translates to how you live your life. When we're constantly trying to find balance and constantly dealing with the ups and downs of our lives and our jobs and our things that happen in our life. But it's so fascinating to me, and there's so much to learn. I think I can consider myself a student to our art for the rest of my life. There's so much to learn. And the more I know and learn, the more I'm humbled by it, by how much I don't know.
I have a question, Crystal. Can you tell us in your own way about Formline, a little bit about what that is, how it works?
It comes from and belongs to the indigenous people on the Pacific Northwest coast that spans from Alaska through British Columbia down to Washington. And more specifically, the tribes Tlingit, Haida, and Tsimshian is where it's rooted from. And some people say there's a Haida style versus a Tlingit style versus a Tsimshian style. But we also traded a lot, like with our songs and our stories. And so what I've learned is that artists create a style. And depending on that artist, if they're Haida, Tsimshian, or Tlingit, people start to recognize the trend that artist makes as, oh, that's Haida. Instead of seeing like, oh, the artist is Haida and just taking this design and creating their own style with it. But with Formline, there's also principles. My mentor, Robert Davidson, he's a Haida artist from BC, Canada, and carves a lot of amazing totem poles and masks and sculptures and jewelry. He also does paintings. I studied with him for 3 years, and he really taught me the foundation for what he calls the ABCs of Formline design. And that gave me a really strong base of understanding the structure and how to visualize a piece, how to create it and execute it till it's finally brought to fruition.
You mentioned the positive and negative
Yeah.
elements and the balance of that. When you're drawing something that is form line, you start with shapes, or do you start with lines, or is it sort of both?
Oh, you could say this about all drawing anything. When you draw a line, you're creating two spaces, a negative and a positive, and they have a relationship with one another. And when creating a piece, you're thinking about, how do those two shapes interact? How do they fit within each other? It's such a cool parallel to our kinship, because our kinship in our society is built on opposite clans and taking care of the opposite, acknowledging the opposite. And so it's creating balance. And you look at form line, when you're creating form line, you want balance throughout a piece. You don't want something to look too chunky, or, like look too heavy or too busy or too redundant in this area. You want to create this sort of rhythm where all the negative and the positive space are in harmony with each other, but they also create this beautiful variation where it gets your eye to move around a piece and not be stuck in one area, but move around it and maybe like reconnect at the beginning again.
And
almost-
within this, I'm sorry to cut you off. Did I cut you off?
No, go ahead.
Within this framework, is it comforting, or is it difficult to find your own style within that framework? You definitely have a distinctive style. I feel like if I see one of your murals now, I recognize that it's something you've done.
What I've learned is you can never stop studying and learning from the art. And so I continuously challenge myself to learn from it. Before I dive into creating my own style or my own ideas, I have to return to the ABCs. Am I doing this shape right? Does it look good? Does my ovoid? The form line is constructed from one shape called the ovoid. And from the ovoid shape stems the S shape, the U shape, the trigon. So there's all these different shapes that come together from the ovoid, which looks like this oval with one side that's very flat. But there's specific, like I want this ovoid to have really tight corners and look really clean. That one ovoid is going to determine the rest of my design. The thickness, the line thickness, how big it is in proportion to how big the other shapes are going to come out. So when I start sketching an idea for a design and I'm using formline design, I'll start with, where's the head of this being, or what's the shape of this wall or basketball? And maybe a good way to warm up is by placing an ovoid in there and then adding shapes off that ovoid. There's the ovoid, add a U shape, add a S shape off of that, and it starts building into filling the space and filling it to fit the space and complement the space.
I love that, because there's always got to be a starting point.
Yeah. It's like a puzzle, but maybe a complex puzzle.
Right.
And I enjoy that.
And like with music, you have to make a first sound, and then there needs to be a sound or a silence that follows that sound, and so on and so on. And
yeah,
you build complexity.
Yeah.
Try to control it maybe or not, but
yeah. What I think about a lot when I'm creating my designs, I'm thinking about movement. How is this moving? I think that's what people are trying to describe to me when they see my art. They're like, your art moves, or it's like, it's so...
There is a fluidity.
Fluid, yeah.
Yeah, I look at your art and see flow. And the flow is really comforting and visually engaging, soothing, yet it has a spike every now and then. You're just like, oh, that's a nice one right there. I mean...
Yeah, you gotta throw those spikes in there.
Rob and I were invited to go to the Alaska Airlines unveiling of the salmon plane.
The
salmon
livery
people plane.
that you designed for Alaska Airlines, yeah.
It's beautiful. And it flies all over the country, and
I gotta tell a short story about this. So I think they had mentioned seeing the plane at the opening in your art, and then I think I may have seen it in the newspaper or something, but we were flying east, and the plane was, just sort of fresh in my consciousness from the paper or something. And we pull up to the gates at Alaska Airlines, and I looked out the window, and we were right next to the Salmon People plane. And it's like great art is, it's like something appeared from another world into this world. It's like a hole cut in reality when you see that kind of thing. And it was really powerful. So I just wanted to thank you for that. To see, it was like seeing the soul of my home, just materialize in the world.
Well, it's been such a crazy and amazing journey. The airplane, the Khatkwani, it's been quite the experience, and it continues to be the experience.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? What's going on right now? You're traveling a lot with the plane, making appearances.
I've always traveled a lot. I really enjoy traveling, and I can always bring my art and my work with me. It's very easy to, and I've been flying Alaska Airlines since I was a little girl, and I actually wanted to design an Alaska Airlines airplane for, maybe 5 or 6 years. And I always thought, how cool would it be if they had an indigenous artist do it from Alaska? And I downloaded a template of the Boeing 737, and I superimposed some of my graphic design into that template. And I posted it on social media, and I told everyone to share it and tag Alaska Airlines and say, hey, hello. And what do I know? 2 or 3 years later, I get a phone call from Alaska Airlines, and it's the Vice President Regional Alaska Airlines, Marilyn Romano. She's super excited. She says, hey, I've been trying to get a hold of you. And I was like, oh, you finally saw my post. She was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, I already know what you're calling about. It's so I can design an airplane. And she was like, how did you know? I was like, because I've been trying to make this happen.
She hadn't seen your post.
No.
Okay. And
No, it was
They wised up.
maybe I was jumping the gun, but apparently a livery lasts for 10 years. So when they paint the airplane with a design, it's called a livery, and every 10 years it has to be repainted, so they put a new design. And so the former airplane was the salmon one, and that was actually a photo of a salmon that was scaled up and then painted on. And it was time to repaint it. And so Marilyn had this idea that we should hire a local artist in Alaska to design the airplane. And so she put the idea out there and proposed it to Alaska Airlines. They were into the idea, but she kind of got stumbled on who to pick, because when there was a huge list of names brought to her, it was overwhelming. And she loves telling the story, and I love telling it too. She said she was sitting at her desk, and she could not decide, how am I going to pick an artist? And I just so happened to be on the cover of Alaska Business Monthly magazine that month, and the mail person came in and put it on her desk. And as she's having this thought, a photo of me where I'm standing in front of a art piece, and on the cover it says, I talk about doing monumental art and wanting to work bigger and create bigger art. And this was during the time I was working on planning for the Anchorage mural. And so I was in this phase of shifting my art larger, going bigger. And I almost didn't do this article because it was like, I was so busy at the time, but I was like, no, I'm going to make time. And so we did it. And I'm so glad that it worked out that way. She calls me and tells me this story. And I was like, oh, you didn't see the post?
The universe delivers. Huh?
That's right.
my first thought is, were you on the list?
I don't know.
Yeah. Doesn't matter. You were on the cover.
I don't know. I don't know anything about the list. I should ask about it.
How was Alaska Airlines as a client to work with? What were the challenges in, putting together something like that? I imagine you had to work with a committee. There were certain restrictions, things you could do, things you couldn't, an iterative process.
Well, it all happened very fast, and they had a very quick turnaround. They were like, well, this has to happen quick. And I was like, okay.
Great. I have this design ready.
I'll do it. Well, they had a vision, and we wanted to tell a story, and they also wanted me to work with them on telling the story, like what is very Alaskan and what are Alaskans very proud of. Well, first of all, Alaskans were very proud of the former salmon livery. Mm-hmm. And that's the one thing I keep thinking about, what connects all of us in Alaska the most. It's salmon. And so we went with this idea of the salmon. They sent me the branding guide, and I had basically this color palette they gave me, and I just started sketching ideas very, very quickly and sending it back and forth to them. And, the first few sketches I did, they look really groovy and kind of like, there's a lot of lines and movement, and they went back and forth with me to basically simplify and create this very clean but smooth and like beautiful, simple but intricate piece that has the 3 salmons on it. And I was like going back. It was tricky because, not most of my clients have not worked with a formline artist before, or some of them have not even essentially worked with an Indigenous artist before. And so I really try to create a platform so that, okay, you're working with me as an artist, but I'm also Indigenous, so you need to respect my process and the art in these ways. Don't change these things, but we can, now that you know all these things, the world is our oyster. And working with Alaska Airlines was very interesting because they're a very big corporation, and I like to do a lot of research when I work with clients, and like what is their history with our people and like with Alaska community, and like they've been flying me and my family all around to go to visit each other, to go to potlatches or ku'iks or, different ceremonies, or to go visit and connect with one another, to go fishing, whatever it is. Alaska Airlines has transported a lot of our family and our harvest and it's been there for us. And so I was like, I want to do this. And, but yeah, there's definitely guidelines that I had to learn. It was a quick learning curve for me, but working with Marilyn made it a lot easier too, because she's an Alaskan herself, and she's really proud, and she was like really creating space for me to create the way that I create.
It sounds like maybe there was some trepidation there of make sure they do it right and be respectful. And from everything I've seen, from my perspective, it looks like they've really, taken a lot of steps to be careful and thoughtful and
inclusionary.
I think it was really amazing because they really embraced every part that I wanted to bring into it. I said, this plane has to be named in a Tlingit word. It has to have an Indigenous name. And they were just super down with that right away. They loved the idea. And I was like, I was worried because, they might be like, oh, that word's too hard for people to pronounce. And I'm like,
well, can you share it with us one more time? Because I'm not going to try.
It's Khatkwani. Khatkwani.
Do it,
You should
Rob.
try.
Do it. Do it one more time.
Khat.
Hot.
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 It's like hot. It's hot. But go at the beginning. Khatkwani.
Khatkwani.
Like, it's a good hot.
Khatkwani.
Kwani.
Kwani.
Garrett's got an ear for it.
Khatkwani.
Perfect.
I really want to learn Tlingit.
You should. I think the more the merrier.
Rob, you're up.
Say Rob. Say Rob.
I'm a hard out. No.
I know. Well, Crystal, it seems like that project brought a lot of new eyes to your artwork. Has it opened any doors, any new opportunities? What's next for you?
Yeah, I mean, there's been abundance of opportunity and people coming to me and reaching out to me from every angle, every walk of life, everywhere, all over. have people from the other side of the world reaching out to me on my social medias, just telling me that they're moved by the piece. And I've also gotten a lot of requests for, design my car, design my boat,
Come on this podcast.
come into my house and paint this wall. And it's really hard for me to say no to people, as I'm very much an opportunist and I love saying yes, but I'm really taking this time to learn of setting boundaries, but also like being very clear of this is my time, this is my value. And it's paving a new pathway, because there's not a lot of people that have designed an airplane, and there's not a lot of people that have done murals in Alaska, especially in Southeast Alaska. It's a rainforest there, and doing murals in Alaska is kind of crazy. Like, you kind of have to be a crazy person. The weather is unpredictable. It's harder to get things here. There's always something that's going to make it hard to do, but if you're crazy enough, you can do it.
Well, when do you do your best work? Are you a morning person?
When I wake up in the morning, I can do emails because I'm in a good mood. I have my coffee, and I try not to answer emails when I'm tired, because then I won't sound as friendly. I don't wake up until very late. I'm a night owl, but I work every day, all day. My off time is doing more artwork. I try to make time to cook meals for myself and go to the gym and take a sauna. But even when I'm doing all those things, I'm brainstorming these ideas and breaking them apart. And sometimes getting out of the studio and moving my body or clearing my mind actually helps generate ideas, or come back to ideas that were like, okay, you're in timeout because you're not coming to be this idea that I thought you were going to be, which happens a lot as an artist. You're like, I have this idea. And then you try to create it, and it comes out as this really hideous blob. And you're like, what happened?
Well, you kind of started off this conversation about communicating with your future self. And it seems like, sketching and expressing yourself as a form of kind of chronicling and journaling, your experience. Some of those ideas, I imagine, will percolate and then bubble back up to the surface over time.
Yeah, they always come back. I mean, look at the Alaska Airlines post I did. It came back to me. It was an idea I put out there. I really, truly believe in putting ideas out there. You manifest them to come to life. If you put energy into it, if you really, really want something bad enough, you can get it. You might have to be a little bit crazy to get there.
Yeah, ideation for me is where I live. I just love the power of the idea and thinking about the way you think about you, right? A lot of people just think about ideas, but when you think about the way you think, you unlock this way to make the ideas even more crisp, even better. And so I think that real ideation starts with that.
Mm-hmm.
And you're clearly an ideator, and you fall in the three categories: think, make, do. And you do all of those very well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been very inspiring to, be part of this conversation with you. Let me ask you a question. Your network that you talked about, I'd love you to think about who would benefit from the Why We Draw thing that we're doing here right now,
Mm-hmm.
As an guest, because I think we're trying to build this result. We're trying to build this conversation around the value of creativity, and this has clearly been one of those conversations, and would love that to continue to grow and grow and grow.
I think that an artist that would be amazing on this podcast is Drew Michael. He's a Yupik mask carver here in Anchorage. He's a very fascinating man.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. We, Garrett and I, we did the totem walk in Sitka, of course,
Mm-hmm.
but we also had an opportunity to go over to Kasan and do the totem walk there. Have you had a chance to go over there?
Mm-hmm.
They had a totem with, 13 potlatch.
Yeah, the rings
The rings
on the
on the total.
No,
was
that
13.
that Kassan site, the whale house,
Mhm.
is really, really magical. It feels like a real place.
Mhm.
It's not not a reconstruction. It's not the Disney version of.
Yeah.
It's a real settlement there.
Yeah.
Special opportunity.
Well, I also look at this as a continuing exploration. What can we learn? You brought a brand new and very fresh perspective that we really hadn't unpacked before. So it's been really interesting sitting down and hearing from you.
There's also my brother Rico.
Yeah.
He'd be great for this podcast. If you ever do make it to Vancouver, BC, Robert Davidson is a phenomenal man. He's just so wise. When I was studying with him, I felt like a Jedi in training with Yoda.
Oh yeah, yeah. Sometimes you meet some people that just so inspire you, and sometimes it happens in a very short amount of time, and sometimes you really invest in it. And finding a good mentor is, most of my mentors are actually younger than me, because I feel like you need to open yourself up to opportunities like that. And I appreciate that you're settled in, knew you had to have a mentor, go all in with it, that process. And the results have been amazing, and they continue to be. And I expect that you're going to be vaulting and vaulting and vaulting, so that the arc is going to go, vertical at some point. And appreciate your being discerning about what work you're going to take, because you can't do it all. And but I always trust my belly and the things that I want to do. Like, ooh, that's like a great idea. We should do that one.
I always think when I'm stuck or I have a hard time with something, I just think, I can do anything. You're in a book. Take a
We talked about like formative experiences and inspirations, but Reading Rainbow.
Reading Rainbow.
That's a new one.
Yeah, that one never left me. Sometimes I'll just be like, I am so mad that I'm an artist, and then I'll just start singing that, and I'll just laugh at myself and be like, I'm stupid.
I read it in a book. Well, Crystal, thank you so much for making the time to sit down with us today. Where can people find you? I know crystalworl.com.
Crystalworl.com. Instagram is @crystalworl. And also give us a follow at Trickster Company. And if you want to shop from our shop, we are trickstercompany.com.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Crystal.
Thank you.
Why We Draw is a production of MCG Explore Design, located in beautiful downtown Anchorage, Alaska. Subscribe to Why We Draw on your favorite podcast platform so that you don't miss an episode. You can watch Why We Draw on Spotify and YouTube, and send us your comments on future episodes at exploredesign.com/whywedraw. Thanks for listening.